2025 has been pretty much not all about the rules, but a lot of conversation has been about the new rules and how do we first of all see them. I think they're great for the elite level. That would be my own opinion. Coming down the leagues, I don't know how that's going to translate. But so far, what do we see? Like, Aaron, what do we see so far? The pros, I suppose, and the cons at the elite level now?
Well, I suppose I've been involved with Sligo. You get a fairly good insight to what's happening and all the tweaks that were there. And I would have to say, as we're drawn to the close of the league, that I would be hugely positive about them. I think that definitely were needed. And particularly this past few weeks, the small tweaks that they had let a lot run during the league, they sat there and they assessed them. And I think the tweaks that they made this past few weeks, I definitely think has enhanced the game. I do think that long term it will get even better in terms particularly of the forward shape that there is, or maybe the amount of opportunity that there is. The foot pass probably hasn't been what we all envisaged it would be, but I think organically through time, without having to force it, I think that's another aspect of the game that coaches and players are really going to smarten up with.
Even defensively, like one-on-one zone, like you were obviously a defender and a great one-on-one marker, but I suppose that's where we're seeing the progress here, isn't it? The 1v1s inside, you're going to have out-and-out defenders defending like what we wanted, and out-and-out attackers attacking. Like, it's not this mass defence anymore. It's going to be more fluid kick passing. As I think the championship runs on, there will be more of that sort of stuff and more 1v1s inside. But like, how is that for a defender going out in a game where you know you're marking the best man 1v1 and you know you're going to have all that space in front of you?
The art of defending is definitely going to have to be at its best when it comes to individual 1v1s. I'd much prefer to be a forward than a defender in the modern game now, but again, like, the new rules has brought out a bit of innovation. Players love innovation. They love different structures, different philosophies when it comes from coaching perspective, but the fundamentals of being able to go toe-to-toe with the best forwards is now going to be on show in every game with having the trio.
I think that's the brilliant part for me, is that everybody has the ability to showcase their talent. So Gaelic football was getting an awful lot that everyone was just the exact same. You needed to be run from one end to the other, and if you're good at hand pass and you could cope at inter-county level. Where now I think there's a bit of a madness in a defender where he wants that one-on-one challenge, that one-on-one battle, and ultimately everyone pays in to see the elite players putting the ball over the bar or taking you on in one-on-one situations. So everything is now afforded. The high fielding's back in the middle of the field. So I think an awful lot of what they were asked to do, they have ticked those boxes, and I think as players, coaches and spectators, certainly much more entertaining and enjoyable.
Just, you touched on it a small bit earlier on, we were walking around there, and it's about this constant flow of game now. There is no break in play anymore. Like, when the ball goes out, it's literally straight back in. You know, if it's a free, there's no slowing down the free anymore. It's like it's all forward momentum all the time. Like, how is that? And I know you're coaching these guys. How is that impacting on the load of the training loads and even the match loads now that the guys are getting? Because obviously the inside guys probably don't do as much running, and the guys around the middle third are taking up that slack a little bit. So, like, as in physical training, has that changed? Is there more S&C? Is there more on recovery? Or what way does it work for these guys?
To be fair, I know what I see happening in Sligo. It is extremely proactive in terms of how the players are monitored and what they're doing in terms of the overall distance, the high speed runs. I think it's top class, the feedback that they're getting and the rest that they get whenever the time is right. I do think there'll be a big spike in terms of what we're asking club players now to do, and they may not have the same, I suppose, background, or they might not have the same help in that regard. Like, there are a lot of inter-county teams who are picking up injuries. Touch wood, we seem like we've been going okay so far. In Sligo, but there's certainly, and this is what you're saying, it's the relentless nature of the game where you're up and down. But through time now, again, like the tactics, players' bodies will adapt to it and they will get used to it. Even a small thing like not putting the 20 seconds on the goalkeeper, getting rid of that a couple of weeks ago, that just affords players the opportunity to go out and just take a breather.
I actually thought with the new rules, the goalkeepers got the worst of it all, because you're actually kicking out to an extra body, they're putting a time constraint on it, and you had to kick at a distance. So, like, that in itself was, and then you're asking the guy to come out and actually play football as well. So it was like one of the biggest transitions, I think, for a goalkeeper. I watched it here on Saturday night. I think a goalkeeper's main prerogative is the kick-outs and getting them off. And I think we've seen it here with Dublin on Saturday night, the difference Stephen gives that in that aspect. He doesn't make 2 or 3 mistakes in a row. We discussed it earlier on, and I think maybe you might see the real sharpshooters from the tee coming back into the fore and getting away with this kind of free-flowing goalkeeper. I don't like that business of that. I prefer a guy that can ping the ball out and make sure that any high balls are in around the area, he's sweeping and doing his job that way. But
sure, there's a lot of goalies like that.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's a different aspect, and now managers are asking the goalkeepers to go and do all these different things. I think it's very difficult for.
Well, I suppose the big one you go back to is that how many different counties and teams have you seen where they're talking about doing away with goalkeepers and putting outfield players in? And
goal,
again, you were losing something that was really traditional within our game. Absolutely, let the game evolve and let the goalkeeping position evolve, but not to the detriment of what their bread and butter is, which is your shot stop and your high field and minding your square, and then obviously getting your kickouts away. That's the fundamentals of what goalkeeping is. And like I said, that everyone has a role now. Depending on what size you are, what your skill set is, I think everyone now has an opportunity in the new modern game that we're playing at the minute that you can showcase to the best of your ability instead of a bland nature where we all need to be the exact same.
It was interesting to see though, like the likes of Niall Morgan, Ethan Rafferty, how they contributed and asked serious questions, both players that play outfield for their club. So a lot of players would be delighted with your top philosophy of being able to kick the ball out long and not having to worry about GPS numbers, because have no doubt in your head, if the rules continue the way they were, has the goalkeeper the physical capacity and demands, can they keep with what a half forward is doing, getting up and down the field, and it made
I also think there's a bit of magic in the goalkeeper getting his kickouts off and the kind of set play ability around that, like the lads in the middle third running off each other, making that pocket of space for a little 40-yard ball in there. A lot of the keepers now are just putting it down and booming it out long and saying, right, let's battle for it out the middle.
And it doesn't make for good viewing,
obviously, but I know it's horses for courses. Obviously, Galway have big men around the middle. That's where they want to compete and win the ball. But I just thought it was a bit of a nuance in that,
Well, I suppose that was one thing. I just happened to bump into Jim Gavin. It was a function in Belfast a couple of weeks ago, and he said, "Give me your thoughts." And initially,
did he have the jam jersey on?
he did. Initially, I was saying, you need to do away with the kickouts outside the 40-metre arc because it was just congesting the field. He did say to me, "You're just not exploiting the space that's there enough." Like I was thinking of the Connolly coming down the wing and palming it down to Paul Flynn heading the opposite direction. I'm not seeing that space at the minute, which is what you're talking about. Yeah. Everything seems like it's going long. Maybe through time this will evolve, but I have to say from a spectator point of view, some of the games that we've been involved in late down the track where you're maybe 5-6 points up, the fact that kick out has to go long again and it has to create a contest, it is a positive because it takes the control from management. It's gone. It's completely gone. There's very little you can do once the pressure comes on. It's your players who have to deal with it, have to adapt and read the situation on the field. And to me, again, that adds to excitement. I suppose the only one that you would have a bit of worry about is we're now coming into the end of the league and we're coming into the championship. And while the league is brilliant because everyone's playing at their own level, what's the discrepancy going to be with a Division 1 team playing the Division 4 team or Division 1 playing Division 3? Can you claw back the big leads that we've seen teams do in the league? I don't believe we will.
Yeah, I in my own opinion, I know we discussed it a little bit earlier, but I think you will see that void getting bigger. Yeah. Because of the 2-pointers, because of the 1v1s, you're going to see the best players coming to the fore. Yeah. And I think the best teams will shine. Like Leinster, let's be honest, they've 7 teams in Division 3 and 4. We've 2 in Division 2 and 1 in Division 1. So, there is going to be a huge discrepancy down the league when we hit the Leinster Championship and Dublin roll out against maybe Kildare or whatever. I can see that point gap getting bigger and bigger. Yeah,
unfortunately, I agree. But that may lead to a bigger change, which is what happens to the provincial championships. But maybe we'll.
What about no more changes? How about that?
Yeah. There's enough changes.
Yeah. There's been a small bit of talk, I suppose, around hurling, and there's a task force being put together. But does the rules now, in my opinion, absolutely not. I think hurling's one of the best spectacles as a field game in the world. I've been to most of the All Ireland finals over the last years, and they've been epic battles. I don't think the game needs to be touched, but in your opinion, you're closer to it than I am, Cads. What do you think? Is there an element of what the football thing is doing? Can we bring that into the hurling, or is it just stay away?
Stay away. I think genuinely we've got one of the fastest field sports games. The one thing I probably would look at is there's a lot of attention around the head-high contact over the last couple of weeks. Last weekend, I think there was 6-7 sending offs. Will there be consistency now in terms of will that be applied come championship in 4 weeks' time? I do think that referees need some sort of help with the pace of the game, the power of players. Can we help them, and what does that look like? Does that look like having 2 referees on the field? Does it look like having a VAR situation where you're looking for, okay, we're going to make a massive decision here. Was that head contact? Was it not? Was it a red? The referees are human. They have a split second to do it. Let's try help them out. That might be the only change I would make to hurling. Otherwise, I think, as a spectacle, it's incredible, and it's only getting better. Yeah.
I think you're right. The viewership in hurling has just gone up and up and up, and I know they're trying to change football, and maybe that's the reason why the spectatorship hasn't been.
The viewing wasn't there.
Hasn't been the same. But there's one thing for me in hurling, and I've played hurling, not maybe at the level you have, obviously, but when you're running through on goal, and it seems to me like you can just pull a lad down willy-nilly, and that was kind of eradicated from football by giving a real harsh punishment for doing that. I don't really see that in hurling. I'd love to see, if you're clean through on goal, it's a red card, no messing. That's what I'd love to see, and that would be my only change, because but I'm a forward. But again, goals in hurling, just they make everything more exciting and more electric, and I think, and it's a huge swing in the game sometimes. Like you get clean through on goal and a lad pulls you down 14 yards out, it's a tap over point, yellow card. Yeah. We've 6 defenders that can do that. So you've 6 goal opportunities, I can do that 6 times. That'd be my mindset of thinking, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'd love to see just a harsher punishment for a guy going in on goal and getting pulled down. Yeah,
you're probably right. The one counter to that would be, as a whole, throughout the league and championship, teams are still creating those goal chances, and it's probably rare occasion we see that pull to the ground last minute.
I don't think there's jeopardy now at this time of the season. I've seen it last year in the big games. Lads will not let you go through on goal at all costs. And kind of lose the skill of the game where I can just rugby tackle you to the ground. Like hurling's the most skillful game in my opinion. So I think we need to promote them, and goals, as I said, they're so clinical in games. Just to touch on the condensed season, and look, are the All-Ireland finals, in my opinion, the All-Ireland finals are a little bit too early in the season. In the summer, there's 8 or 9 weeks before the kids go back to school. There's not a lot of stuff to do. Is it working, the condensed season, and how could we maybe make it a small bit better?
I suppose for me, I was a big advocate of the split season, so I can't be too critical of it. I do think in general that it does work in terms of what it affords the club players down the lane. But like I said, I was for it, but I definitely think there's no county should be playing the first round of championship the week after a league final. Okay. And then I don't think you would see what's happening at the moment, where it looks like, particularly at Division 1 level, whether it's off the back of Derry and Mayo winning the leagues this past 2 years and then having poor championships, whether that's a bit into thinking of it. Like Clare and the Hurling last year won the league and won the championship. It didn't bother them, so I don't know why all that's been put on football, as this is the reason why they had bad championships. But I certainly think Division 2, 3, 4, all them teams, they all want to win, they all want to get promotion, they all want to get promoted as champions. But you're seeing it at Division 1, and I think to do away with that there, I have no problem in giving another week, if it needs be, to the league season, and if that means rolling on a few weeks into August to extend the inter-county season, I would be all for it, because I think it's still a big jump back from where they were in September, but I think there has to be that 2-week gap at the end of it where you don't have an All-Ireland hurling final one weekend and an All-Ireland football final next week. I think they're the biggest weekends of sport in this country, and I think they need time to build up and come down. So as someone who was a Club Players Association advocate, I'd be willing to give that wee bit of ground, because I think it is needed.
I probably agree 100%. It is quite congested.
Sorry, it's different in terms of a dual county. Like, what is it like for yourselves then? How does it actually play out in your club terms? Yeah.
So again, my own club would be dual senior. But you are looking at those dual players being on, week off when it comes to hurling football, which can be quite difficult at senior level. If we were to flip it back a small bit, say, to the league finals that we were talking about this weekend, You know, I do think that every team should be rewarded the opportunity to go full tilt for a league final without having the overhang of having your first run of championship the following week. That doesn't sit well with me. I think any sort of medal that's up for grabs is a huge honour for the player, and also builds confidence. The reality is, from a hurling perspective, now there is a little bit more of a window of opportunity for teams between the league final and the first round championship. Teams are going to be playing challenge games anyways. So, you know, from a hurling perspective, having that gap allows them to go full tilt for your league hurling and still have the opportunity of space in between, like, you know.
Yeah, I think it might be different for the likes of Dublin maybe, or the likes of Kerry, because they probably mightn't get that level of a game in the Munster Championship or the Leinster Championship. But for an Ulster team or a Connacht team that maybe, like Mayo go out against Galway the week after a league final, you know, they're only after playing each other. That's not right. Like, in my opinion, that's not right. You're not respecting the players there. You're not respecting the team at all. You need to give them a 2-week, if not 3-week gap between that final and the first round of the championship. If it's such jeopardy in it, like if they lose, they're out. So, and particularly in Ulster, like where all the counties are competing, there's not one county you'll say, oh well, maybe they won't. But like Dublin probably will go out in the first round of the Leinster Championship, win by 20 points. You know, but if they get to a league final, they'll have played one of the top teams in Division 1, you know, and that for me they'll learn more from than, you know, rolling over someone in the Leinster Championship. So there has to be a little bit of respect on that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think particularly Leinster, or what's happening in Kerry at the moment, it affords them one more weekend to play against a top Division 1 side that will set them up for further down the track, and it suits them. But just if, for instance, the whole big talk was Donegal. Like, Donegal's playing, even the logistics of it, playing a league final, if they were to get to it, and then travelling back to Donegal, and then you're out next weekend against a team who wants to ambush you after what happened the year before.
But you're also saying to the players, you're not allowed to celebrate your win.
Yeah.
This is a national medal, lads, and it's very hard to win. And you're telling guys, right, you go up on a Sunday, you play your match on a Sunday, you're not probably right till Wednesday, you're not training, so you're not doing your particular tactic on the opposition you're playing at the weekend. It's a mess. It's not fair.
It's
on
rushed.
the players. It's not fair on the management. It's not fair on the logistics side. It's not fair on any side, I don't think. You know, and then what's happening is lads are just going saying, league final, let's not bother put out our best team here. Let's mind it for the next game. And
well, I'd say the players would want it, but ultimately the call will come from above them. You know?
And it comes back to what we were talking about, load management. You know, players will ask you again. Management will be saying, let's go for championship, let's focus on championship, and that's what teams have done.
Right, lads, so two shiny pundits from GAA Plus I have here in front of me. What are the thoughts of GAA Go when it came out first, and the direction maybe it's going, where the GAA have now taken it back in, and do you think we'll see more on the media side of things from the GAA effectively, but what are your opinions on that move?
Well, I suppose the big one is that the fact that GAA Plus has now sole ownership and control of it. I think that was clearly something that was an eye into the public or to your viewers. They're in complete control of that there now, and I suppose the fact that RTÉ have come out at this stage and announced the games that they have all picked, it maybe takes away from some of that animosity that there was last year in terms of where certain games were shown and where some weren't. And I suppose I'd be hugely positive in terms of being a GAA person that I actually see this going to a different level. I think that the access, knowing from being involved, I'm not sure you get the access in other places that GAA Go or GAA Plus now do in terms of the interviews with players, the insight from players, coaches, the match day stuff. I actually find it very enjoyable even being part of it, and I think it gives you great insight if you're sitting at home watching it. And then I think actually as a whole, I think it will just showcase, I think down the line, the access, the amount of games that they'll always be able to show, and the access that I think down the line they could get to maybe training sessions or post-match stuff with counties, with clubs. I think it'll be absolutely huge, and I think it'll really help to grow our games, and I think it'll organically just start to happen, and players and managers don't seem to be as sceptical of it. They just give you a good insight that you didn't always get anyway, so that would be the big thing for me.
He's hit the nail on the head, Aaron, like about promoting our game. Like we talked about the window of opportunity shortening to showcase our games to kids. The GAA Plus now have an opportunity to show games that the viewers wouldn't have been able to see. You'd like to think that the people involved, like say former players, have a good understanding and good knowledge of the game. Like aren't currently a coach in an intercounty setup, having played it, again, it gives people that little window what I suppose goes on, what's needed to be a part of an intercounty setup, and also from a tactical perspective. So I can only see it as a positive. It'll be very similar, you'd imagine, to the NFL channel that, you know, live access, all games available, and that's what people want. Like, there's nothing better than being able to sit down, whether you're from Dublin, Armagh or Cork, and be able to see a game, having it readily available to you.
I suppose the transition from playing into coaching into media, how has that been? I know you've dipped your toe in a good bit, the same with yourself, Eoin. How has that been, and what insights would you give from, like, GA, and you touched on it there, GA Go I thought was very good, as in you got more access to the pundits and they talked more openly about their careers and how they got to positions they got in and different scenarios in there, and it's more kind of lighthearted and a bit of crack. But do you enjoy that more than sitting down with an RTE panel on the Sunday game maybe, and it's a little bit more rigid, like, I mean, a little bit more scripted, and you can kind of roll off the cuff of the GA Go side of things, and I really enjoy that because you see different personalities then, you know.
Well, I think that's the one bit that is enjoyable, that doesn't seem to get enforced.
Yeah.
They just sort of let you organically open up the conversation and let it flow, and I think they're happy to encourage maybe any knowledge that you have from teams that you've come up against or counties you're coming up against, or even, you know, say I'm involved now at the county level in terms of coaching. To me, that's probably important because we can all be experts, but you're not stuck in the middle of it. You don't really know the ins and outs of why stuff is happening tactically. So I'm enjoying that bit of it this year, I have to say. To be involved in the county setup, I suppose, just to see at hand now even what players are doing, like, what is it, 10, 12 years now since I played myself, like, just the level that it's gone to in terms of what their week is, like, it's just gone through the roof.
Yeah.
But I think the rule changes, they all seem to have adapted really well to that. They all seem to be enjoying it. And I suppose personally, I think I'll have taken a huge amount from the bit of time that I've had with the management team in Sligo, but particularly from working with the players, how knowledgeable they are and how, I suppose, interactive that they are now, how keen they are to learn, to dissect their own game, to understand what everyone else's positions is. To me, it's an aspect that's really enjoyable. And
it's easy from a punditry perspective to have an opinion, but you also need to give a solution, and that's where, whether it be at club level or intercounty level, when you're coaching, players are very susceptible to learning. They like to engage, they like to be doing what modern intercounty players are doing, what's best practice, and sometimes I find that, yeah, great to be doing punditry, but then it's very, very nice to go back to club level and say, I'm trying to get the best version out of Diarmuid or Aaron or Eoin or whoever that is, and that can be hugely rewarding for the player, and sometimes it's the simple things that work really, really well.